Good morning and welcome back. I am Penny from Sew Charming Quilt Shop in Clanton, Alabama, and I'm going to be starting a new project today and wanted to bring y'all along with me. If you've ever seen an Irish chain quilt, or if you've ever had the desire to make one, that's what we're going to make today, and I'm going to show you an easy way to do that. What we're going to need to get started is a jelly roll, which is a 2.5-inch strip roll of fabric of all the different fabrics in that line. Now you don't have to use a jelly roll. You can use 2.5-inch strips of whatever fabric you want. If you have some yardage or some scraps that you're wanting to use, you're more than welcome to use those. You can really use anything you want, but for ease purpose, this is what I'm using because it's already cut for me. I know it blends, it all goes together, and I am ready to go. So I've got me a jelly roll. I've got some strips of fabric that I am going to use as my black background because it blends together well with this. So you're going to need some strips and you're going to need some fabrics that you want to put in the quilt. So this is my background and this is my focal pieces. I will put all the amounts of everything you'll need in the description below the video and any other information you'll need. It'll have the size of the quilt when we're finished, how to make the cuts, the fabrics you'll need, everything you need. Questions will be answered in the description below. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Let's get down to the sewing machine and get started. Okay, I'm going to start by opening up my jelly roll. And if you're not familiar with a jelly roll, like I said, it's strips of all the coordinating fabrics from one fabric line, already cut in a 2.5-inch strip. So that's why I love them. They make it so easy to get started. I am going to, now these strips, when you open them up, they'll be kind of color coordinated, like the blues will be together, the browns will be together, that kind of thing typically. So if that's the case for your jelly roll, you'll want to divide them into color codes and then make sure that you pick different colors. Like I don't want all my blues together and all my greens together, that kind of thing. So I'm going to take one from the top. I'm going to take one maybe around the middle so that I've got two different jelly roll strips. And then I'm going to take one of my coordinating pieces. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take them and I'm going to sew them like this. So let me get one started. I'll open this strip up. Don't worry about your selvage pieces right now because we will cut those off in the end. So I'm going to take my strips and I'm going to sew them together like this lengthwise. So I'll put them right sides together on top of each other. Remember, don't worry about the selvage. We're going to sew them in there right now, but we'll cut them out eventually. So I'll take this and I'll line it up and I'm going to stitch at 1/4 inch all the way down the long side of this fabric. Just keep them lined up as you go down the line. You can pin it if you like, but it's just as easy to just keep sewing it down. And then line it up as you go. But that's a preference thing. All right, I've got to the end of this one. I'll cut my thread. Don't worry if they don't match up because we're going to cut that off anyway. So you don't stress over that. Then we'll open it up. We will iron it in a minute, but I'm going to open it up. And then I'm going to take this other strip and I'm going to sew it down the other side. I want my background piece to be in the middle of these two strips. I'm going to sew it the same way down the long side of the fabric at 1/4 inch. Once I get this done, I will iron this open. Ironing is a preference thing. You can iron it to one side like that, or you can iron it open. I typically just iron it like that. That's what I'm going to do, and then we're going to go over to the cutting table. Once I've got that made, I've ironed it, and I've ironed it like this. You can iron them open if you want to, but they've laid perfectly that way, so I just left them that way. So that is how this one strip's going to go. Now we're going to do the complete opposite. Where the cream was in the middle this time, now the cream's going to be on the outside. So we're going to do another strip, and then we'll go over to the cutting table and I'll show you the next step. But first, let's take one cream and then any of the other prints, one we haven't used before, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to stitch down the length of it, and we're going to put a print on either side of this cream. So once I get this sewn the same way I sewed the last strip, I'll come back and I'll show you what the next step is. I have sewn the next strip set, so I am just ironing them open. And one thing I needed to notate for sure was when I said I'm ironing mine like this, I am, because it pretty much just goes that way. See, watch. When I lay this out, they just fall flat easily. But if this background fabric is white, you're going to want to do them that way, because you don't want your seams to be shown on the outside of that white. Where mine is not a white, it's more of a creamish, almost khaki color. Mine aren't going to be seen, so it doesn't matter. But if you're using a light color or a white background fabric, then press it to the inside. Where I'm doing the outside, you'll do the inside. Okay, I'm going to keep going with this. Then we are going to start cutting. Once you get them sewn, you're going to take your first one, you're going to cut off that selvage. Throw that away. Now you've got a clean cut on this side. You're going to take 2.5 inch cuts. So this is my 2.5 inch, actually this is my 2.5 inch So Charming ruler. Can you see the words So Charming Quilt Shop on it? Yay! Okay, so we're going to take and cut these into 2.5 inch strips. And I'm going to set them to the side. Line it up again. I'm going to do this all the way down this strip. To make it easier and quicker, I'll get this side as well, and I'll cut off the selvage area, the edging of it. And then I'll take this and I'll line this up perfectly. Now you can do it one at a time like I was doing a minute ago if you want. Or you can do it like this and cut 2 at a time. I'm going to do this for this whole strip. Then I'm going to take this strip and I'm going to do the same thing. Once you have cut your strips like this, you're going to do a whole bunch more with these strips that we've not cut yet, because we're going to take these and we're going to make 9 patches with them. So you'll do them like this. When we've got our blocks together like this, I can't sew them together like this because these are the same. I don't want these the same. So I'm going to take all the rest of these strips and I'm going to make them into cuts like these as well. And once I have a big stack of these, because all of these strips are cut into these segments, then I'll come back and we will start making these 9 patches and turn it into an Irish chain. I've finished making all of my strips. I've cut them all into 2.5 inch width strips. So now we're going to put them to the side and make a 9 patch. So we'll just take 3 miscellaneous prints. We don't want all of these to be the same. So we'll try to coordinate to where the prints aren't the same. If by chance they happen to be the same, by the time we put this chain together, you won't really even notice it. But I do want to try to keep them not the same. When I get to the bottom of my stacks, that might happen once or twice, but it's not going to be a deal breaker. So we're going to start now with making our 9-patch blocks. We're going to start by taking this piece and this piece, flipping them right sides together. We'll get our pins out and we will pin them together. What we'll do is we'll find those seams right here, line them up and roll it to the top to where those seams match. Now this is what I'm doing. I'm taking the seams, I'm lining this seam up with this seam. So I'm lining them up and then I'm just rolling them to the top so that the tops meet, and then I'm pinning them. Now I'll sew down this side at 1/4 inch. Make sure it lines up. And now when I open them up, they're lined up. Now we'll take the next one and we'll put it here, put it right sides together, line it up, seam to seam, and seam to seam, pin it, and then again I'll stitch 1/4 inch down this side, the long side. And these strips, I don't remember if I told you this, would measure 2.5 by 6.5. So they should be 2.5 inches wide by 6.5 inches long. And now I've got my 9-patch. So I'll iron it open. And there's our 9-patch. I'm going to keep doing this until I run out of these piles, and then we will come back and put our next piece together with it, and we'll make our quilt. I now have all of my 9 patches made, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to square them up. I'm going to take the first one, and I'm going to get my square up ruler, which is, the smaller one is at the shop, so I'm having to use the bigger one. But it still works. It works for all these sizes listed. So we're going to go down to the cutting table and I'll show you how to do that. To square these up, what we'll do is we'll take our first block, we'll line it up to the size we're looking for and see if it fits. It fits. So at this point, I'll take my cutter and I'll cut the 2 sides. Then I'll take it and I'll turn it twice so that these 2 sides are under the ruler and those 2 sides we've already squared up. Then we'll square up these sides. You may only get a sliver, but those slivers add up. So now we've got our squared up block. We will do that for all of our blocks here, and then we will move on to the next step. Our next step is to cut some blocks that are the same size as these. So whatever you squared your blocks like these up to, which mine was 6.5, then I'll take these and cut the background block the same color as this square in here. I'll cut these to be the same size. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to alternate. I'm going to start with this, then I'm going to put one of these, then I'm going to put one of these, and I'm going to keep going all the way down. So my first one is these 2. So I'll put these right sides together, line them up, take them to the sewing machine, and I'll stitch 1/4 inch. once I get that done, I'll take this and I'll open it up. Now at this point I can iron it now, or I can wait till the end to iron it. But I ironed mine now. I'll take another 9 patch and I'll put it right here. So right sides together, line them up, take them to the sewing machine. Stitch down that side at a 1/4 inch. And then I'll iron it open. I'm going to do this until I have 9 patches. Okay. Now I'll show you the next step before I keep going. The next row I'm going to want to alternate. So I want to start with this and then this. And I'm going to sew them together the same way I did that. And when I get all of my rows sewn together, I'll come back and I'll show you what it looks like when you put it together. So I'm going to continue with row 2. And I'm just going to alternate. The first row will start with a 9 patch. The second row will start with a blank block. The next row will start with a 9 patch, then a blank block, all the way down until I decide it's long enough. And then we'll have our rows, and I'll come back and I'll sew our rows together. To speed it up a little bit, you could chain piece these. So lay 2 on top of each other, right sides together, stitch at the 1/4 inch, instead of going to the next step, just keep doing this. And I'll keep going until I have enough to make a row. And then I'll cut them apart and start putting that row together. I'll show you what I'm talking about after this one. I'll cut my thread, cut them apart, and now you've got 2 sets. So I'm on my second row right now, so I'm going to start with this blank piece. Then I'll stitch these 2 together to make 4 pieces. And then I could have gone ahead and made some more and then just kept chain stitching and put the whole row together. But you get the idea. I know I'll bore you if I keep doing all of them, so I'm just showing you that you can do several at a time and then sew big clumps together. Like you could sew sets of 2s together and then make those sets of 4s and then make those sets of 6s and keep going like that. And then your rows will be done in no time. So I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to alternate the beginning block. The first one will be a 9 patch, the second row will be a blank one, the third row will be a 9 patch, the fourth row will be a blank one. I'm going to keep going till I get all these rows sewn. The rows are together, and then I'll come back before I sew those rows together. And I'll show you what it looks like. You'll start to see the chain of this quilt here shortly. We're getting close. So I'm going to keep going, and I'll come back to you when I'm further along. I've got my first 2 rows done. My first row starts with a 9 patch, so when it starts with 1, it also ends with 1. Now my next row is just the opposite, and it starts with the blank square, and at the end of it is a blank one. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take these 2 rows and I'm going to put them on top of each other, and I am going to pin. There's a lot of times that I don't pin. This is not one of those times. I'm going to take and pin a lot of these across here, but I'm going to start with these seams, line those 2 seams right here up, and then kind of just work it to the top. So just roll it till it gets to the top and pin it. And at every seam like that, at the edge of those blank squares, that's when I'm going to pin it. So I'm going to pin there, roll it, pin it, keep going down the row. And what I'm going to try to do is get one seam to go to the left and one to the right so that it lays a little bit flatter. If it doesn't, it's not a big deal. I wouldn't stress over it. So I'm going to do the same thing here. Line those seams up. Line those up. Again, I'm finding these seams right here, matching them up, and then I'm kind of just rolling it to the top so that I know that those two seams meet. I want them lined up. And I'll do this all the way down this row, and then we'll sew this row together. Once you get that whole row pinned, you'll take it to the sewing machine and stitch a 1/4 inch down this whole row. Take your pins out as you go along because you don't want them hitting your needle. And remember, all these strips that we used with the jelly roll, you're going to have duplicates, and if they match up, it's not a big deal. You are going to have that happen multiple times through the quilt, more than likely, and if you still see the pattern, it still works out good. So at this point, I don't stress with what the pattern is where. Make sure you keep it lined up all the way down. And I'll stitch this whole row, and then I'll show you what it looks like. I've got my first 2 rows sewn together, and I have ironed them open, and this is what they look like. Right now, they're still looking like 9 patches. But I'm going to put a couple more rows onto here, and then you'll start seeing the chain work going across it, and it won't look like 9 patches anymore. So we're going to keep going. I'll add a few more rows and come back to you. I am back, and the quilt top is completed. We've not quilted it, of course, but the top itself is made and put together. The great thing about this pattern is you can make it whatever size you want without any trouble at all. You just add extra rows. It's not like it's going to distort the pattern. It's not. All you do is add or take away from the size that you want it. So the size that I made it was 15 blocks times 13 blocks. So 15 down and then 13 across. And that's the size I wanted it. I did have 2 extra rows onto it, but I decided it was too big for what I was wanting to do. So I took the 2 rows off and I added them the other way so that now it's 13 by 15. And the finished quilt top ends up measuring, if you do it the size that I did it, it measures 77 by 88. That's plenty big for the size I'm needing. So that's what I've done. This is what it looks like. I'll lay it out so you can see it, but it is a big quilt top. It did not need, for my purposes, the 2 more rows. If you're fitting it for a bed or whatever, maybe so for a bigger bed, but this is not going to be on a bigger bed. So I'm going to lay it out, show you what it looks like, and then I'll show you a finished one to compare it to. This is the finished quilt top. And see, it's pretty big. So I didn't need any bigger, so this is the size I ended up with, 13 blocks by 15 blocks. You can start with the 9 patch right here, or you can start with a solid on the edge, it doesn't matter. This one I started with the 9 patch on the edge. The one I'll show you in a minute, I started the opposite way. So it doesn't matter which way you start, it's just whatever you want to do. This is the one I had already done. It's the same size, and you'll notice that I started over here with the solid. It's a pretty good size quilt, so there you have it. That is how you make an Irish chain quilt. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you try it for yourself. If you have any questions, let us know. Like and subscribe to this video. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you don't mind. It helps us immensely. And all the information you will need for this quilt is in the description below. I've got the measurements, the yardage amount you'll need, everything you'll need. But until next time, you guys have a great afternoon. Enjoy what you're doing and happy quilting.